There are major changes coming to the Mightiest Governor and Wheel of Fortune events in Rise of Kingdoms. And although these are changes in the early game, they're going to have a major effect on everybody all the way up through Season of Conquest and beyond. So in this video, we're going to go over what these changes are, how they're going to affect the area that they're actually being implemented in, as well as how they're going to affect the Season of Conquest meta as a whole. Without further ado, let's get started. So first, we're going to start out of order because there are a couple things that I need to touch base on before we talk about the new schedules and new adjustments. The biggest change that is coming to this game with this update in May is going to be that Saladin and Khan are going to swap places. In the current state of the game, Khan is on the wheel and Saladin is on the Mightiest Governor. This is a problem because Saladin is typically a free-to-play friendly commander, whereas Khan is a more whale-heavy commander because he doesn't really hold his relevance in the Season of Conquest. So what swapping this does is it gives the Mightiest Governor Khan, so whales can go and get him expertise sooner, so that he can be used during the time that he's relevant, while also allowing players who are free to play to be able to access him through the Wheel of Fortune event without having to directly compete with other players for that. And this is also great because Khan needs to be expertise to be useful, whereas Saladin can be 5-5-5-1 and still be useful, especially in the field. So this swap takes Khan, who needs more gold heads, and puts him in the event where you can get more gold heads more quickly. It takes Saladin, who's the more free-to-play option, and puts him in an event where he is better suited in the free-to-play, where you get fewer heads, but you get a guaranteed chance to unlock him. There is some changes here that are coming on with Thutmose coming from Expedition. I'm not sure if that means they're going to be bumping him out of the gold key commanders, but time will tell for sure on that. The other major change that's not listed here, but we'll get to further up on the change log, is that Minamoto is going to be available outside of VIP bundles. This also probably means that you can invest legendary sculptures into him if you wish. So players like me who don't want to spend the $100 on the VIP bundle to expertise Minamoto, if they still have the desire to do so, can do so without having to drop so much money on a bundle that doesn't give you a lot of value outside of those gold sculptures. So overall, it's going to make Minamoto more accessible, especially with his new relic, and Saladin and Khan are going to better fit into the niches that they are supposed to be in. Okay, now that we've tackled the big changes, let's get to the more detailed and intricate changes. So first, before we begin, I want to clarify, when they say a season's off season, they mean the time before the season. So season 1's off season is the time between your temple capture and your first season of Lost Kingdom. And your season 2 off season is the time between season 1 and season 2. So when you see the off season, it's the time before. So the first change is that the commander rewards on the Mightiest Governor before your first Lost Kingdom is selected commanders from your choice of tavern. This will be like your Season of Conquest Wheel and Mightiest Governor events where you could pick which one you want to go after. However, the rewards will be limited to tavern commanders. These mean your gold key commanders. Not your legendary tavern commanders, but rather your Martells, your Sao Saos, your any commander that's a legendary commander that is basically available through your gold keys. So this will be a more limited area, but at the same time, it gives you a chance to unlock gold sculptures for a commander that you desire. So if you want to be a cavalry player, this gives you a chance to get cavalry sculptures. Whereas before, you might have been with a Richard event, and that's not going to do you any good. So the bonus to this is it's going to make you be able to pick what you want. But the downside is, of course, it's going to become more competitive, which means if you want a placement, you're going to have to fight a little tougher because everybody's going to be fighting for something they want. After the season 1 begins, you'll have 3 Mightiest Governors, so 6 weeks of El Cid. So this will be the first fixed one, and it's one of the last ones that actually stays fixed. So you'll have 3 rounds of El Cid, and that'll be that. After your first season of Lost Kingdom, so after your first Lost Kingdom and before your second, you'll be able to go back to any gold key commander, essentially. So this is going to be another chance for you to get some more commanders, build up your commanders for Season 2, and you'll be able to pick them, so you'll be able to build them for your actual troop type, instead of just hoping that you get whatever troop type you're building. Once you enter Season 2 of Lost Kingdom, you'll be able to pick from Khan, Constantine, and Tamiris. So you'll get one for each troop type. And these will be just completely through competition, and you'll be able to select them. Which means if you're a cavalry player, you're going to be competing against an infantry player, competing against an archer player for these sculptures. So it will make Mightiest Governors more contentious and more competitive. However, you'll also be able to get something you actually want. So overall, it's going to drive early competitiveness in Mightiest Governors way up. This will go all the way until Season 3. And then once Season 3 starts, you'll actually get to start competing for Season of Conquest commanders. This is a big deal because it actually gives you a run up to Season of Conquest instead of being dumped into Season of Conquest with none of the Season of Conquest commanders. So this will help you build up your garrisons and your rallies before you are in that KvK. However, you will still not be able to use them in Season 3. You'll still have to wait till Season of Conquest. However, any progress you make there will go towards your Season of Conquest, which is your end goal. Lastly, you get to the end, and you may have a different number of times based on your schedule, because they're starting to push KvKs tighter. So some of these might not be as many cycles, like you might not have 3 Cid cycles, you might not have as many cycles with a specific Mightiest Governor. It'll depend on your scheduling. And now we're on to the Wheel of Fortune. So it looks like once you enter the preparation season, which is the season before Season 1's off season. So it's the season before you enter Season 1 of KvK. You'll be able to have Minamoto as your Wheel of Fortune. So this means that Minamoto is going to be achievable and obtainable without spending money, which is going to be nice for a lot of players, especially since he has some good relics and he's actually pretty relevant even in the current meta with Season of Conquest. This will go for a while, and then once you get to Season 1's off season, it'll go to just like the Mightiest Governor, where it's going to be select a commander from any of your gold keys, and you can spin for them. And this won't get you a lot, but again, it'll let you select towards, because a lot of the problem that free-to-play players tend to run into is if you're a cavalry player and you get nothing but infantry commanders, you can't use those commanders as well, and it kind of puts you behind early. So this will help actually even you out and keep you on the path that you want to be on. So if you want to stay as a cavalry player, you can keep building cavalry commanders without having to worry about being stuck with an infantry commander, for example, because you're only getting those from gold keys. This wheel gives you an alternate option. After you enter Season 1, the commander wheel becomes YSG for 3 rounds. I'm glad that they're keeping this because YSG is still a huge impact on the game and will probably continue to be for some time because he's probably the free-to-play commander. So keeping him for 3 rounds is good. It's going to keep players able to unlock him easily. After you enter the Season 2 off-season, so after KvK 1, you'll go back to the same Gold Key Tavern style, so we'll gloss over that quickly because we've talked about that a couple of times now. And then once you enter Season 2, you'll get to spin the wheel for Saladin, Alexander, and Edward, and Tutmos. So really, Edward and Tutmos is not a huge deal, but the fact that Saladin and Alexander will be available on the wheel and you'll be able to pick them and guarantee that you unlock them is a huge deal for free-to-play players because they're both really solid and they do still translate, although not as effectively as certain Season of Conquest commanders, into the Season of Conquest. So they make excellent bridge commanders while you build up your Season of Conquest commanders. So that is huge that you're going to have access to both. And then after you enter Season 3, just like the Mightiest Governor event, you're going to be able to unlock Season of Conquest commanders, which means you're going to be able to start preparing them for when you exit Season 3 and enter the Season of Conquest. So you won't be entering with no Season of Conquest commanders trying to scramble them together at the last second. So overall, great change. It's going to make things a little easier, and what it's going to do is actually even it out. So that if you're a cavalry player, you have plenty of wheels to get any cavalry commander you want to use leveled out, or infantry or archers. You're going to be able to level out your playing field and get yourself more established before you enter Season of Conquest, where you're also trying to get those commanders from the first 3 seasons done at the same time that you're getting the demand from the Season of Conquest commanders. So it should help ease that transition and make that transition into Season of Conquest a lot smoother. Just like the Mightiest Governor, the time frames might change a little bit, but that's to be expected since they're kind of tightening the windows between KvKs to try to get people to Season of Conquest sooner. Next, we're on to the daily special offer. These are your little bundle chests you can get from the shop. So the changes are going to be pretty standard. You're letting you have Milan at Season 1, and then Tutmost once you start Season 2. Then it says sometime after you enter Season 2, you get the wheel commanders, Saladin, Alexander, and Edward of Woodstock, but it doesn't say how far in. I'm guessing a couple weeks, maybe 2 wheel cycles before you get it in. And then once you start Season 3, the same will happen for Khan, Constantine, Tamiris. So free-to-play players or players who don't plan on spending, you might not be able to get Khan or Constantine Tamiris right away, but if you're planning on spending just a couple dollars, you can get them through these daily chests, although it's a lot of random chance. And then the Season of Conquest commanders will trickle in. I'm sure they'll release a more standard schedule once that gets closer. But it looks like they'll all just trickle in after that during Season 3, so you won't be jumping right into Season of Conquest without these available either. So what kind of impact is this going to have on the Season of Conquest? I think it's going to make a bigger impact than most players think. With Minamoto and Saladin both having some impact in the current Season of Conquest, one is a bridge commander and the other as a pretty decent option for players who are free to play or low spenders, giving them the option to be able to expertise them both much more easily is going to help them be further along come Season of Conquest. So when these players are going into Season of Conquest, they're not fighting Season of Conquest level commanders with gold key commanders exclusively. So the increased accessibility of these commanders and the increased chances where you're not fighting over the same Mightiest Governor events for one person to get a good cavalry commander, and you have more options so that more players can have more chances to get their commanders ready to go. It's going to overall help, and it's going to give everybody a chance to take their wheel and take their Mightiest Governor events and actually get something productive for them, so that you're not wasting a infantry Mightiest Governor as a cav or archer player, or vice versa. Because then you're constantly making progress instead of making incremental progress and having to wait 6 weeks till your commander swings back around in the wheel. So overall, it's going to give these players a chance to have a more steady growth instead of a jump and plateau. So it's going to help commanders be further along come Season of Conquest, so that the jump is not quite as painful as it once was. And in addition, it's also going to help accustom players to the style of Season of Conquest, where you pick which one you want and you have choices and options. So overall, it's going to help get players more accustomed to that style of play. So overall, I think it's going to make a huge impact on the game. If not for the players who are currently in Season of Conquest, for the players who are currently working towards them, and make it a generally more friendly environment for players who are new, as it's a lot more forgiving when you don't have to wait 6 weeks when you pick the wrong commander on a wheel. Well, with that, we'll wrap up this breakdown of the update. I think this is actually a really big deal. I think it's a really positive move for the game, because it makes it more accessible for players who are new and a lot more forgiving. I know when I started playing, there was a lot less forgiving of a playstyle. If you missed a wheel and you were out of that commander, you were out of luck and you had to wait 6 weeks. So keeping that more accessible and allowing players to build into their actual intended troop specialty is going to help keep the game fun for everyone and help keep the playing field a little more even between the spenders and the free-to-play players. But let me know what you think. Do you think this is going to make a positive impact or a negative impact? Let me know in the comments. But as always, good luck, fight well, and I will see you on the battlefield.